Hello again, and welcome to my August wrap-up. This month, I believe I read 12 books, so I guess that's pretty good. I hope that you enjoy the video, and as always, let me know in the comments below if you have any suggestions for future videos. I'll see you guys at the end. So unfortunately, I am starting off my month with a DNF, do not finish. I didn't clarify that in the last video, but I know if you're watching my video because you're my friend, then you may not know what all the terms mean. So yeah, I decided not to finish this book. I was probably about a third of the way through, and I was starting to enjoy it more, and it was starting to be a quicker read for me, but there were just some things that kept popping up that were making me feel a little iffy. Oh, and I should actually introduce the book. So this is Moonflower Murders by Anthony Horowitz. It is the second in the, I'm not sure what the series is called, but with Susan Ryland. And the first one was Magpie Murders, and I really enjoyed Magpie Murders. It was an interesting way of writing because part of it is from the point of view of a woman who is the editor for a man who writes detective novels. And then the other part of the book is the actual novel itself, which is somehow connected to the murder. This one also follows the editor and another mystery. So back to what I was saying before, there were some things that just popped up that made me feel a little uncomfortable, and these things included the main character is married to a Greek guy. She's living in Greece, and she just keeps talking about all these negative Greek stereotypes that she believes. That was kind of weird for me. The author, I am 99% sure, is not Greek. Not sure if anyone in his family is. And then there was also the fact that the only Black character in the book who is the detective, is constantly described as threatening, even when his words he just seemed to be acting like any other detective that you read in any other detective story. And then finally, there was a lot of homophobia in this book, not by the main character, so there's that, but there was also the fact that the gay characters that were in this book were old men that were sleeping with young men, which I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I feel like that is a stereotype that kind of getting sick of. And so I was like, what is going on? Because there's just been a few things, and there were some other things too that are making me think, oh, this is, yeah, just a little cringy. And I looked up the author, and it did say that he described himself as vaguely conservative and had called out the quote-unquote cancel culture. That ultimately is not something that I am down with, so I just decided not to finish this book. No judgment on anyone who enjoys these books, wants to read these books, but for me personally, it was just a little too much. So unfortunately, this is my first book of the month, but it is also my first DNF. Hopefully the next book will be a bit more successful. Okay, so I just read The Great Gatsby, and it did not stand the test of time. It was definitely more problematic than I remembered, and I swear this wrap-up is not just going to be me complaining about problematic books. The next book that I'm currently reading is really awesome, and so I should have a much better review, but I just wanted to talk about this one briefly. I knew before I remembered that the one character, Tom, was really racist, but definitely F. Scott Fitzgerald, the author, writes him as a character that you're not supposed to like very much, and you're not really supposed to respect his ideas. But there were some moments where the narrator was using racist descriptions and anti-Semitic as well. And excuse me, I know that people will say, well, it was different because of the time, but I still refuse to believe that everyone was like that, right? And obviously the people who are members of those minorities, may still have had a problem with those descriptions. And it just really, I just was thinking back to when I was in school and we read that book. And I don't know how other people's experience with The Great Gatsby were in school, if they read it. But I just wish that my teachers had said something, had addressed it. Because I think that as kids reading it, it gives this idea, if you don't say anything about it, and there's no reason in the book for us to think that the narrator is unreliable or something like that, then by not saying anything, it's almost like saying that it's okay, or at least it's not addressing that this was a problem, and, still is, of course. So I just wish that we had talked about that in school. This is a reread for me, and I really was not feeling like finishing it after I got to those parts, but the reason I was reading it is part of a challenge, and I will explain it to you guys at the end of the year, actually. But because of that, I decided to finish it. However, I don't want to rate it because I feel like, for me, I don't want to separate the value of the book from the problematic aspects. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. But before I go, I forgot, I should probably talk about what this is about, because I know not everyone has read this book. It takes place in the 1920s. I didn't realize it was actually written in the 1920s, which is really interesting, because that means it was written talking about the time period that it takes place in, with no knowledge of World War II and the Great Depression coming. Anyway, the narrator in the story is in his late 20s, and he moves to New York from the Midwest, and he is living next to this really rich man who throws all these extravagant parties. His name's Gatsby, Jay Gatsby, and there's all this mystery surrounding him. And you kind of learn throughout the book where he came from, why he is the way he is. There's a whole romance plot, but more than that, it is a commentary. It's a social commentary on the life of wealthy society in America, especially in the 1920s. So that's all I'll say about that. And now we can move on to a book that I enjoyed much more. All right, hello everybody. Sorry for this crazy angle. I'm trying to catch the sun. I finished last night Above Us the Milky Way, An Illuminated Alphabet by Fawzia Karimi. And this book was really cool. Very sad, but the way that it was written was each chapter was a letter of the alphabet. And then there were sort of, what are they called? I guess like prose, like short paragraphs, sometimes a couple pages about the plot, which I'm about to tell you. So, from my understanding, this book was inspired by and loosely based on the author's life. She and her family had to escape from Afghanistan when she was very young, and she talks about the horrors of the war and how it affected her family and how it affects people, has affected people over in Afghanistan, and also about her and her 4 sisters' lives growing up. And it also is interspersed with these beautiful anecdotes about the natural world, the universe, the Milky Way, stars, and there are illustrations as well. Let me try to find one for you guys. There's pictures. So I don't know how strongly or loosely based this was, but there's a picture that I'm assuming is of her family. And then, for example, we have this illustration of cat eyes here. So this book was, I definitely don't think that I got out of it everything I could have gotten out of it. I am definitely not pretending to be an expert at interpreting texts. So, but I did really enjoy it. It was definitely a book that was not a quick read for me. It took me a while to get through it because there was so much beautiful language, and a lot of it I had to kind of sit there and be like, okay, what are maybe the deeper meanings behind this, or what is she saying exactly? But it is very, very sad, and I think overall I'm going to give it 3.25 stars, but yeah, would recommend this one if that sounds like something that you're into. So next up we have the 4 books that I read from my queer romance reading blog. So I'm not going to talk about these too much. If you want to know more, you can watch my video. But I read first Something to Talk About by Meryl Wilsner, which is a sapphic romance with a producer slash writer and her assistant. And I think I gave this one 3 stars. And then we have The Romantic Agenda by Claire Kahn, which is about an asexual woman, and it's a fake dating romance. I totally forgot what I rated these. I want to say 3.25, because I know that was my 3rd favorite, and Something to Talk About was my 4th favorite. Then I read A Lady for a Duke, which was my favorite of the 4. This one I gave 3.75 stars. It's by Alexis Hall, and it is about a trans woman in like the 1700s, and she meets back up with her best childhood friend, and there's a romance there, of course. And then finally I read She Gets the Girl by Rachel Lippincott and Allison Derrick. I gave this 3.5 stars. Super cute, sapphic romance between 2 freshmen in college students. Alright, so I just finished I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and this was my first book by her that I've read so far. And I really liked it. I mean, it was really good. It was very sad. There was a lot of terrible stuff that happened in it, but I'm glad that I read it. And I really didn't know what to expect when I started reading this book. I had no idea what it was about. It turns out this is about her childhood. So it starts when she's around 7, maybe even before that, and it ends when she's 16. And it is basically an autobiography about her life growing up, her relationships with her brother, with her grandmother, who raises them for quite a while in Stamps, Arkansas, and with her parents, who she meets later on, or I guess meets again. She starts off in Stamps, Arkansas, but she does end up traveling to different places because of her family, and she actually ends up in St. Louis at one point, which I think I had read somewhere that she had lived in St. Louis, but that was kind of interesting to read since I live in St. Louis now. And actually, one thing that kind of intrigued me about her account there, it was, well, first of all, her time there was one of the hardest parts of the book to get through. It was really traumatic, a lot of the stuff that she went through. But aside from all that, before all that happens, when she just has moved there and she's talking about St. Louis, she mentions that people are really fond of mixing peanuts and jelly beans, which I had never heard of. So I don't know if it's still a thing. I just looked it up, and it seems like a lot of native St. Louisans have fond memories of eating peanuts and jelly beans. So I definitely want to try it. But yeah, Maya Angelou, going back to what I was saying before that, she definitely goes through a lot. Not only the trauma of growing up Black in the time of segregation, this book mostly takes place in the 30s and 40s. So definitely there was a lot of racial violence going on, and economic discrimination. Of course, a lot of that is still going on today, but it was a really sobering account of this one girl's life growing up. And the thing that I found really interesting was that I had just finished reading The Great Gatsby, and that book takes place only 10 years before. And the people in that book have such a different life. I mean, I know that the 30s is when the Great Depression happened, but from the backstory that we know about her family and where they end up, I know that they were not up in West Egg, New York, partying it up at Gatsby's house. Like, they definitely, and from what we know from history, of course, had just such a much harder time. So this book was a really insightful look into the life of this one girl growing up in the South and then later in the West in the United States during segregation. And it was just a really compelling and engaging read overall. Like I've said before, don't usually read nonfiction books or autobiographies because I guess assume that they are going to be kind of dry, but this was definitely not that. It was very thought-provoking, but it was also not written in such a lofty way that I had to stop and look up words every page. And I think that there's a time and place for those books, but I also appreciated that this book was what it was. So I'm going to give it 3.5 stars and would definitely recommend. All right, so I'm in my field clothes right now because I today just started my internship with the Institute for Conservation Medicine at the St. Louis Zoo, which was really, really awesome. Very quickly, the Institute for Conservation Medicine believes in a One Health approach, which means focusing on the health of animals and people and ecosystems, seeing how they all connect, and utilizing people from all different areas, whether that's human health doctors or vets or field researchers or environmentalists, to try to treat the issues that affect all these things. So that's what I've been doing. We've been doing some work with box turtles, tracking and tagging them. Anyway, today was my first day. It was a lot of fun. But the real reason that I'm updating is because I have made my peanuts and jelly beans. So I didn't find a real recipe. This one that I saw online, this woman had said that she believed Spanish peanuts were normally used, but when she couldn't find them, she used dry roasted peanuts, so I just have normal salted dry roasted peanuts. And then I have these gourmet jelly beans from Trader Joe's. I swear I'm not that bougie, but normal jelly beans have gelatin in them, and I can't have gelatin because I'm vegetarian, so these do not have them. So I'm gonna catch it on camera how they taste. I heard it's kind of like it's a good mix of like sweet and salty. I don't know if I did the ratio right, but I'm just gonna try to get a couple beans in there and then we'll see. Oh yeah. Okay, so it's good. Would recommend, definitely. You should do it. I tried to do like half and half beans, and no, it's probably like a third beans and to peanut ratio. I don't know. It's good. I feel like it tastes kind of like honey roasted peanuts, like, or candied peanuts. So I guess that's already kind of a thing. Oh, I didn't even mention. I don't think I mentioned. She said that she warmed up the peanuts. So I literally warmed them up for 30 seconds in the microwave. And I think that made a big difference too, because it's like kind of the jelly beans are kind of melty. And it's just so nice and warm in your stomach. Definitely would recommend these. St. Louis, you know what you're doing. So next up we have The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. And this, if you saw my video about the Aurelium Magical Academy readathon that I did, this book does fulfill the prompt for Obsidian Falls, which is to read a mystery or thriller. So this is a mystery, and I really liked it. So it basically is about this group of four, people that live in this kind of retirement community, and they decide to start up this club called the Thursday Murder Club, where they try to solve murders. And one happens a little close to home, and they end up kind of teaming up a little bit with the police. In particular, this one woman, Donna, who is a PC, which I think is police commissioner. This is in England. And she recently moved to this small town from London. She's trying to get onto more big cases, because right now she's just going around and having to give talks about safety and things like that. She's not doing anything exciting in her mind. And so basically one of the older people in this club, Elizabeth, is very manipulative, but kind of in a great way, and gets them to kind of work with her. So I just loved all the characters. This is a pretty big book, and so, well, I guess not as big as some of those fantasy books out there, but bigger than the ones I've been reading. So it did take me a little bit to get into, but once I did, like, I'm pretty sure I read the last 100 or 150 chapters all in one run. So I was just like, I had to go to bed, but I just wanted to finish it. I just kept putting it off, going to bed. And I stayed up and finished it, and it was just so great. It's really funny. It's just kind of a unique idea, I feel like. And like I said, all the characters are really lovable. It deals with some tough stuff too, because these people are elderly, and so there's surrounded by a lot of death already. But it's also able to have moments of hope and a lot of funny moments as well. So I would say like 3.75 stars for this one, I think. And I heard that the sequel is really, really good. So I don't usually read sequels, but I might this time. I'll keep you guys posted. So last night I finished If You Could Be Mine by Sarah Arzon. And this book was so good. It's just a little book, but it was really good and also really sad. It takes place in Iran with our main character, who is in love with her best friend, who is also a woman. They're 17 years old, and the feelings are mutual. They are in a secret relationship, basically. And her best friend ends up getting engaged to a man, and the main girl is basically refusing to accept that. And so this book is kind of about her trying to figure out how they can still be together and how to work things out. And the ending was not what I expected. I think I can see how this book would be very realistic, and so I don't have any complaints about that. I did really enjoy the story. My one thing is that I didn't really like the love interest. I don't know if we're supposed to like her. She's just very selfish, and it's funny because their relationship was still believable because you really get to see how much the main character loves her. But I'm also like, oh man, but you're too good for her. But otherwise, yeah, I think I would give this book 3.5 stars. It was really good. I would recommend it. Sorry, there's glare. There we go. And I think this will be my last book of the month. So that actually concludes the August wrap up. Thank you guys for watching and sticking with me this long, and we'll see what September brings. So I almost forgot to mention that that book, If You Could Be Mine, also fits one of the prompts that I need for my Aurelium readathon. So if you're following along with that, that one fulfills the prompt for the Mists of Solitude, which is to read a standalone book. So you only need to complete 2 prompts for the stations in the novice path to have completed the novice path. So technically, I have completed it now, and that means that I made it to Aurelium Academy, although I guess technically I still do need to complete the prompts for the creation of my character in general, which maybe I should have done that first, but these came sooner, so I'll keep you guys posted with that. And with all of that, now I'm gonna say goodbye for real, and I'll see you guys in the next video.